Hey guys, and welcome to my channel. My name is Michelle, and I wanted to create a YouTube channel to document and to help other people with their family planning journey. When my wife and I started, we didn't know kind of where to start, to be honest, so we turned to YouTube and tried to research as much as we can as far as like LGBTQ plus family planning. And what that entailed and like what that meant and how do we go about that, especially we live in Texas, so especially like here in a southern state where it's not necessarily the norm. So YouTube helped, but I noticed that there weren't a whole lot of videos that kind of assisted us in that way, or like if there were videos, they weren't really helpful because they weren't so consistent, and that's something that I really do want to give you guys is consistency. Sorry, I'm out of breath. Pregnancy man. But yeah, so consistency. I want to be able to share with you guys our journey and how we went about it, and help other people and other families get to the point that we are, which we are pregnant. So spoiler alert, we are pregnant. But yeah, so if you would like to learn a little bit more about the IUI process and our journey and how we went through it, stay tuned and keep watching. So I have a lot of stuff written down on my phone, so I'll be kind of referring back and forth to it just because there's a lot of stuff to talk about. And if you guys would like a second video to talk a little bit more about certain topics that you heard today, please feel free to ask and request a second video. I am more than willing to talk about it. Anything into more detail, just because I know the more detail you guys have, the more information you guys have, the more I think confident people will feel in doing this process. So I'm an open book. I will tell you costs and how things, financially worked out for us, because I know that gives people a little bit of perspective. I know that for me and my wife, we would like to have known, like, I guess going in cost wise, like that's kind of the numbers. I guess we needed to know what we were looking at in order to start a family. So I will be talking a little bit about prices. Mind you that it's going to be different for everybody, just because insurance and stuff like that, and however your finances are at the moment, they're all different. So this is just how it was for us. And if you need to know more, I mean, it depends also on your clinic and stuff like that. But if you need to know more about costs and kind of like a ballpark number, I will let you guys kind of know on my experience and how it is for us. So stay tuned. So in October of 2018, I was scrolling through Facebook and I saw an ad for a fertility clinic, and what drew me to the ad was the fact that it had two guys on the page with a baby, and I said, wow, that's really awesome, way to be inclusive. So once I saw the ad, I clicked on the picture, and they were having some sort of seminar about family planning, and it was coming up, and I thought, hey, what the hell, might as well just, go to it and see what it's all about. So I did, and I learned in the seminar, I learned about IUI and IVF, and if you don't know what they are, I will post it somewhere here on the page. And what drew me to this clinic and this seminar was the fact that they were LGBTQ plus friendly. So I really enjoyed that, and I always knew when we wanted to start a family, we wanted to be comfortable at the clinic that we were at. So that was really important for us, because obviously it's a sensitive time. If you are within the community, you know how sensitive it is, just because unlike heterosexual couples, you can't just get pregnant the traditional way when people think of having a baby. It's obviously it's a little bit different, and it's a little bit more taxing. If you're identify as a female, it's hard for you and your body, just because you have to go through different little stages of the process. If you are two men, you have to put your trust and all this stuff in another person. If you are trans, or if you're however you identify, it's going to be a little bit different. And it sucks, because you all want this common thing as a baby and a family, and it's just frustrating to have to go through a lot of hoops, because as you know, and I know, being a lesbian is really hard already in life, because people, look at you differently, and I don't know. So it's really hard. So it was important for us to feel comfortable, and I did feel comfortable at this clinic. So that was in October. So fast forward to February, late February, we decided that it was our time to start the process of having a baby. So with the clinic that I had visited in October, I was like, well, let's schedule a consultation. So we had our initial consultation. And mind you, so with my insurance, any kind of specialty doctor is covered. There's like a $60 copay. So that's kind of what I paid initially at first. So there wasn't really an upfront charge until later afterwards, and I'll explain a little bit when I go through it. So with this initial consultation, we went through like our medical history, mine and my wife's, and who would be carrying, which would be me. My wife didn't have the desire to carry a baby. And so with that, we did blood work. We did an ultrasound to check my egg quality and all that stuff, and kind of see how things were going. I did have a cyst in my ovary, and it's a big one, and the doctor wanted to wait another cycle just to make sure that that cyst wasn't growing and it wasn't affecting any hormone levels or anything like that. So she said everything else looked really good minus the cyst. So what happened after that, she said, let's just wait a month, wait until your next period, and then we can proceed and see what our options are. So in the meantime, she decided that IUI would be the best option for us, just because I had never been on birth control. My hormone levels were always fine. My period was always regular. I really didn't have any complications with my menstrual cycle or anything like that. So she thought, okay, this would probably be, you'd be a good candidate for that. So they gave us a paper that kind of described what IUI meant, and what they call it is the global fee. So for us, our global fee, and I'll insert a picture here of just a little snippet of what that included. And so that basically was just the doctor's visit, sonograms, and nurse's visit, blood work, and all this other stuff. And it was a lot, believe me. It is a lot of, it's really expensive. Obviously, we saw it and we were both like, oh shit, that's a lot of money. But this is the way that we are wanting to have a baby, so this is the way it's going to be. So when we did that, we looked at the global fee. We were like, okay, cool. So we thought about it. In the meantime, we had a month to think about whether or not this is something that we wanted to do. So fast forward to March, we checked again my cycle. I went back and they checked to make sure that my cyst wasn't growing, which it wasn't. It's still there. To this day, it's still there. But we were cleared to go. So basically, she was like, okay, great. We're going to do the IUI, but we have a preliminary test to run before you just do it. So in the meantime, she had us scheduled an HSG test, and I'll put the actual technical medical name somewhere on the screen. So with the HSG test, she wanted us to schedule that just because that is another, like I said, I can't even say it, preliminary test. And that kind of just helps you see whether or not your tubes are blocked or not, your fallopian tubes. And so she had us schedule that. I also noticed within my blood work that my thyroid levels were a little off. If you were looking at me, just like if I went to a physical, they would be completely normal. But since I was trying to have a baby and conceive, they were a little off. So she suggested that I get on a Synthroid and to help stabilize my thyroid levels. However, I tried that for a month and I really didn't like it. But if you want to know more about that, just ask me and I can let you know, because I know my body, and I know that sounds like super granola, but I don't like taking medicine that I really don't think I need. So I know she said that it looked normal for just a normal, if you were just a regular person getting blood work done, but conceiving wise, she said she didn't want it to be elevated. And then, I don't know, it's not that I didn't trust her opinion. I just felt in my soul that I didn't feel like I needed it. So that's, if you want to know more information, just DM me. Anyway, so after a cycle, this is in March, so she scheduled the Synthroid. Within March, we had all these appointments just to double check and make sure, and we had the HSG test scheduled for April. Well, within March, we also found a donor, and we found a sperm donor, and we got all of that information through the doctor. They gave us, little pamphlets of use or whatever. So we found a donor. from the sperm bank. And like I said, do your research on your sperm banks. We found one that we just thought we liked, and we figured, like I said, the reviews were good on the sperm bank, and we decided to go with them. And then I think choosing the donor was the hardest part for us, just because you have to like figure out what, I guess, characteristics and qualities that you and your partner want, medical history and all that stuff. There's a lot of stuff to consider. So it's not an easy, quick 1, 2, 3. You really have to put a lot of thought into it. And so thankfully we had a good amount of time to figure that out. So we did. We found the donor, and we found one that matched all of the criteria that we wanted. And yeah, so we chose our donor. So what we did with the donor, and that was kind of expensive. So altogether our donor costs were $1,955. So it was not cheap. They suggest that you buy 3 vials of sperm. So how that works is that for 1 vial of sperm, that's 1 cycle. So that's one, like, you get inseminated for that one time. 2 vials, 3 vials, or whatever. So each vial costs a certain amount of money. So for example, ours costs, a lot of money, and times 2 was $19.55. So it was not cheap. It was very expensive, but again, these are things that you have to consider if you're wanting to start a family in this way with an IUI. So yeah, it was expensive, but what can you do? That was something that we were willing to pay for. Some people opt to use a friend or someone that they know to use their sperm, and that's fine too. 100% fine. You can totally do that. There's a lot of legal issues that can arise from that as well, so you have to make sure that legally you are covered in that aspect. So, but it's obviously a lot cheaper if you use a friend. But we just didn't know anybody that I guess that didn't match our criteria. So it was just easier for us to do the sperm bank route. So once we purchased the sperm, that sperm was actually shipped to the clinic that we were planning on using. And the clinic that we used has a 3-month grace period that they store the sperm for 3 months, which is awesome, free of charge. So after the 3 months, they will start charging you, I think, $450, for the year. But thankfully, I think we timed it correctly so we wouldn't have to use that. So then where am I at in my timeline? Let's move on to April. So April comes around, and it's time to do the HSG test that I've been scheduled. So I did a lot of research. I like to Google a whole lot of crap, and I'm really bad at doing that, and I diagnose myself all the time. So it's not a great habit. It's something that I do. What can I do, right? So I looked up HSG tests and, on a bunch of different blogs and stuff like that about parenting and seeing what that was like and what the process was like. I really just want to know what I'm getting into before I get into it. So some people said it hurts like hell. Some people say, oh, it's not that bad. It feels like a cramp. So what happens in this HSG test, they put the little speculum in. So basically it's like you're getting a pap smear or getting your well woman, whatever the fuck. So they put the little speculum in, they get a catheter, they put it inside your cervix, and then they inject a dye. So sometimes other doctors, sometimes other doctors inject a dye, or they do saline, however it is that they do it at, their clinic. So my clinic, they did iodine, or I think it was iodine. I don't know. They injected a dye into my body. So they put the catheter in my cervix. They injected this dye, and they had an X-ray, like a portable X-ray that they had focused on my pelvic region, and so they can make sure that the dye is going into my fallopian tubes. So they inject the dye, and you are supposed to see the dye run through your fallopian tubes and then run right back out. So when they said it doesn't hurt, I don't know what blogs I read. I don't know. Maybe it was their doctor. Maybe it was the dye. I don't know what it was. But when I say it hurt, it felt like I was being ripped to shreds. Burning, ripping, severe pain. I was screaming so loud. The doctor kept trying to tell me to stay still. I kept yelling at her and told her I couldn't breathe because the pain was so bad. I have a really high pain tolerance, and I know a lot of people say that, but I really do have a high pain tolerance. So things like that, you know, yes, it hurts and I'll breathe through, and I mentally will be like, yeah, I can conquer this pain and it's only going to be temporary, but it was horrible. Horrible pain. It did only last maybe 3 minutes tops, but geez, dying. Like, I was literally dying. So, I was screaming. I could see the dye. One of my fallopian tubes was just slower than the other. Like, it wouldn't pass the dye fast enough. So that's what took a long time. And I was almost getting nauseous from the pain. So I'd never felt pain like that before, which, you know, if that mimics childbirth, if I could do that, I could do childbirth naturally. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, that HSG test was a trip and a half. So they advise you to take a couple ibuprofen before, Tylenol before you go to your appointment for that test. I did exactly that. Didn't help for crap. So I really do hope if you do have to take an HSG test that it works out for you. I do hope it feels like a cramp for you. For me, it felt like not a cramp. It felt like excruciating, ripping, burning sensation pain. But overall, that test, after it was finished, it was reported that my fallopian tubes were nice and clear. So we were on the go ahead to go do our IUI. So we scheduled our IUI the next month, the next cycle. So within that cycle, now we're in May, and with that you have to do a bunch of tests. So you do a bunch of tests to make sure that your blood, like they want to test for when you're ovulating. So when you're ovulating, you get the egg and they put the sperm in, and that's when they meet and they make the baby. So you have to time it correctly. So what they did with me is that they kind of projected of when I would be ovulating after my period, and they would take me to the clinic. I would go to the clinic, I'd get blood work, and I would do an ultrasound to make sure that my eggs were ready. They have to be a certain size, like the follicle has to be a certain size of your egg. Like, I guess the egg follicle has to be a certain size. And once they're a certain size, that's when you know you're about to ovulate, and that would be the prime time. So there's a very, very short window. So I went, I think, twice a week to go. These tests are no joke. It's not like it's a lot of pain. It's just a lot of tedious stuff on your body. Like, you have to go get blood work, and then you have to go and get an ultrasound, and the ultrasound's transvaginal, so they literally just like stick it up you, and they can't do like the overhead ultrasound like they do in the movies, because you're not far along, you're not even pregnant yet, so they want to go internally and see all of your goods. So what they did, like I remember I would go in like twice a week to make sure that I was ovulating, or I wasn't ovulating at the right time. Sorry, my cat is like going crazy. So I would go in, get my blood work, get an ultrasound. I was told, okay, your eggs aren't the right size, or your follicles aren't the right size, I'm sorry, and come back in a couple days. So I'd go back in a couple days, do the same thing. Oh, your eggs and your quality, all that is not ready yet. Come back in a day. So it was a lot to have to go back, and where I work versus where the clinic was is not very close. So it's really frustrating because I do have to take off time from work to go and do this stuff. If you're lucky, your clinic will open, and hopefully you guys can do, do your schedule according to however it is you want to do your clinic visits and all that stuff. So it was hard for me, but thankfully I have my employers very generous and very sweet, and they know what I was doing, and they're very lenient of my time. So I was very lucky. So anyway, finally they're like, okay, your body is ready. We need you to do what is called a trigger shot. So what the trigger shot is, it's just the extra hormone, I guess, to inject yourself to make your body ovulate. Now my body ovulates, like I know when my body ovulates. That's how in tune I am with my body. But this, like, I knew I was about to ovulate, and the doctors were like, yes, we know that you're about to ovulate. We see it in, clear as day in your ultrasound. However, just to give it an extra boost, we want you to do this shot to enhance that ovulation. So I said, sure, whatever. So they prescribed me this shot, and I had to go pick it up. And of course, it's not covered by insurance or anything like that. So that was $156, I think. And you have to keep it cold, and you have to do it the night before they do or like for me, that's what they suggested, the night before we went in for our IUI. So I did the shot. I went in the clinic the next day. They're like, you are ready. Let's do this. So what they did on IUI was they is kind of like, again, another well woman, pap smear type of situation. They put you up in stirrups. They open you up, and then they inject, they put the catheter, and then they inject the sperm into your body. And then you sit there with your feet up for 15 minutes, and then you pray for the best and you hope for the best. And that was it. The IUI, the actual insemination part, was honestly the easiest part of the whole process. The hardest part for me was just going back and forth to the clinic, getting blood work, getting an ultrasound, getting blood work, getting an ultrasound. I mean, I went there I think I would go there like 3 or 4 times a month, and it was just so taxing on my body and on my mental health, because it's like, all you want to do is have a baby. That's all you want to do. And it's hard because it's just not as easy for some people to have a baby than others. And so I was hoping. So after the IUI, my wife and I were like, yay, we're done. And we were praying for the best. We actually had a vacation planned in the 2 weeks. So they advise you, okay, so you do your IUI, and they say, okay, now you're in your 2-week wait. And after your 2-week wait, you wait 2 weeks, and then you take a pregnancy test at the clinic, and they determine whether or not you're pregnant. And you can test earlier, but they advise you not to, just so you won't get your hopes up. Because I did this shot, the trigger shot, that mimics a lot of the pregnancy hormones. So like the HCG hormone in pregnancy. So that'll turn a pregnancy test positive. So they advise you not to do it too soon, not to test for pregnancy too soon, because they don't want you to get a false hope, because that might just be the trigger shot weaning out of your body. So when we got back from vacation, because our vacation was about a week and a half, I was so ready. I took a pregnancy test because I just couldn't wait. It was negative. And this was, I think, day 12 or day 10 or 12 of my 2-week wait. And mind you, the 2 weeks is 14 days. So it was day 10 or day 12. And I was like, well, maybe it's too soon. Maybe it's too soon. And then I think the day before my test, my period came. But before me going to the clinic, my period came. So it was very, very sad for me. Like, that really affected me a lot, just because, you hope that it works. And I've never tried to have, get pregnant before. I've never, had anything like that. I've never had, like, I know this is TMI, but I've never had sperm, in me like that before. So it was really sad that it didn't work, because, I've never had anything like that done, and everything is so regular with me that I really did expect it to work. And so it really affected me. I was so upset that it didn't work. But, we did have another vial of sperm that we had. So we wanted just to do it as soon as possible, I guess the next month after. So yeah, that was it. And then, so since it didn't work, I called the clinic and I said, hey, I started my period. So no need for me to confirm pregnancy, because it was my period. There was no people, like, I read online that there could be what it's called implantation bleeding, which is when, the egg attaches itself to you, but it wasn't that. It was like my full-fledged period. Like, there was no mistaking that. So it was really sad, but I was trying to be hopeful. My wife was really caring and supportive when, it didn't work. And so we were like, okay, let's just try it again this next cycle. And this last cycle, so this was in May, and so we had to wait until June. It was like, okay, this is obviously our last shot to do it, like our last try to do it, because financially it was expensive. It was an expensive process. And, every time we would go to the doctor and get an ultrasound or something like that, there was always like some sort of test that wasn't covered by my insurance that I would have to pay out of pocket. So it was like either like a $60 sonogram or they tested my thyroid, and that was an extra cost because it wasn't covered in the list of tests. I don't know. So there was just always a cost to it. Plus, like, each time that you, like, if you don't get pregnant with your global fee, like within your global fee, like that one time, then, and you run out of sperm, you're gonna have to do it again. So it sucks because it's like, and then the sperm, like you have to buy the sperm if you don't get pregnant. So if we wouldn't have gotten pregnant, we would have to buy more sperm. That's more money. And it's just a lot. It's a lot of money financially. So it's just like, this was our chance to do it. And that's what my wife and I had discussed. You know, if obviously if it didn't work this second time around, we would probably put a pause on it because we didn't want to have to do this again. So we could save up money. And so I can, you know, mentally prepare myself yet again for, you know, my body to be pushed, like used as a push pin. So so we were trying again in June. We had to time it correctly. Again, going to the clinic twice, 3 times a week to make sure that I was ovulating, like when the optimal time for ovulation was. I had to get another trigger shot, again, another $150. And then finally it was our IUI day and we did it. And then again, 15 minutes were up, my legs were up, and then I was done. And that was it. So that one thankfully wasn't as bad as the first one, just because we had already done all the tests beforehand, so we didn't really need to test again. We just needed to do, like, obviously the ovulation test, that kind of situation. But like the HSG test, the one that hurt like a bitch, didn't have to do that one again, thank God. And all the other stuff we didn't have to do, so we just needed to wait, squirt me up, and then that was it. So we did our 2-week wait, and while we were in our 2-week wait, I guess day 11 or so, I was like, I'm going to take a pregnancy test because I want, actually, you know what, even before then, I ended up what it's called testing out your trigger shot. So I would, I think day 10, I started taking a pregnancy test to test out the shot that I took, just to make sure that, you know, it's leaving my body. And then so I would notice on the pregnancy test, it said positive, but then it just, you know, the line would start to fade every day that I would take a test. And then, I mean, I think I must have taken like 50 pregnancy tests. I was obsessed with testing. Like, my wife thought I was like insane. So I took the tests every day just to make sure the trigger shot was leaving my body. And then I remember at one point, like, my sisters were they were on vacation, and I was upset because I started feeling like my period symptoms coming, you know, they were starting up, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm about to get my period, and I'm emotional, and I'm really upset, like everything, like my boobs were tender, I was sensitive, I was just feeling really down. I'm like, oh my gosh, this didn't work yet again, and here I am. I'm so upset because this like was our last time for who knows how long until we can, you know, be able to financially afford it again. And so I was so upset, and I was, again, I was on FaceTime with my sisters, and they're like, go take a pregnancy test. And I'm like, no, I don't want to. It's going to say it's negative because I already had tested out the trigger shot, so there's no way, and whatever. And I'm like pouring myself a glass of wine because I'm just over it. I was like ready to just be over it and done. So, but they were like, come on, let's do it, do it, do it. So I'm like, fine. So I did, and it was positive. And I had already tested out the trigger shot, so that was a positive. And I was like, holy shit, I'm pregnant. And so that glass of wine, I didn't realize it at the time, was my last alcohol beverage. So I poured it down the drain, and I cried. I told my wife, I was screaming. She was right there. So I was screaming, and I was like, oh my God, I'm pregnant. And so we went to the doctor, and we confirmed that pregnancy, and it was true. I was pregnant, and I am pregnant now. And it's been, you know, a whirlwind of emotions. I like, believe me when I say the relief, but the joy that you feel that when you find out that you're pregnant, or your spouse is pregnant, your partner or whoever in your life is pregnant, it is so amazing. And everything, all of the work and all of the heartache that goes into it, it makes it so worth it. And that is me. I'm pregnant now. I am 8 months pregnant. Also, I'm really excited that we're going to be having a little baby. It's a boy, and I cannot be more excited. My wife and I are like, I mean, this journey has been amazing for us and our families, so we're really excited. But anyway, this is a very long video. I did want to just explain it to you. Like I said, if there was a certain part of the video that you really want to know more, please send me a message. I will respond to it as soon as possible, because I really want people to, you know, be aware and feel comfortable with, you know, how they start a family. Like I said, this isn't the only way to start a family. There's many ways to start a family. This was just our way and how we did it. I will insert pictures and little captions of, you know, how we documented our journey and stuff like that. Sorry, my dog sees, I think the neighbor is walking, so she's very protective of me. Anyway, but yes, so thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned for more videos. Like I said in my About Me, I hope that I hope that this YouTube channel grows into more than just family planning. But obviously this is something that I feel very strongly about, because I'm going through it. And I think the more knowledge that other people have, or just even support, you know, I'm always here to be like, yeah, this is awesome, like, you know, or man, this sucks, or whatever it is that, you know, that you guys come across. I just want to be, you know, an open ear for you guys. But anyway, thanks for watching, and I hope you guys have a great day. Bye.